Hey guys, welcome. Welcome once again to our Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time live. Every week, unless something goes wrong, which I think I got this YouTube thing under control, we are going to have the live that you're expecting. And I am Dr. Deb. My full name is Dr. Deb Hirschhorn, but don't worry about that because you won't remember how to say it or spell it or anything. So Dr. Deb's good enough. Let's get right on with it. First of all, please, please, please comment. Please comment in the chat because I don't like talking to myself. It's just not fun. I live alone. I talk to myself all day long. Now I have you here. I want to talk to you. So you can chat in to say, I don't understand. Or I do understand. This is exactly my experience. Or to give me another idea or another example. Or to ask a question. Or to bring up something that's related in some way. All good. I like interruptions. Okay. How can we fix our marriages? Is it possible to do without counseling? So I was very interested in that because I give all this information, like tons of it. I've been doing this for years and years and years. Articles, posts, lives, and my channel now has series of educational videos. There are 2 playlists up there. And the second one is a work in progress. I've got 3 up already. I hope it's doing something to help people. And I keep getting feedback that it is. I get tons of feedback that it's really helpful. So why would I be doing that if I'm a therapist who makes a living from people coming to me? Why would I be doing that? And the answer is like this. This is what I have discovered in my very long career as a marriage and family therapist. First of all, there are 2 categories of people in this world, just 2. Those who've had trauma and those who haven't had trauma. There's a slight exception. The category of people who have had trauma may not feel the effects of the trauma if they had support, like really good support through the trauma. They may be able to get a whole bunch of information from books and from podcasts and lives and articles and stuff like that, like what I'm giving you, and really make changes, just like people who have had zero trauma. So it seems to me like the entire difference spins around trauma. If you've had it or even didn't have it or had it but had support from some people in your life at the same time. So let's see what that's all about. First of all, let's define and let's explain trauma. And you'll forgive me, I just caught a cold, so I'm going to do something you're not supposed to do when you're conducting a live, but I can't help it. What is trauma? Trauma is an experience that rattles you so badly that you must produce safety measures, defenses, coping mechanisms to protect yourself because either it is ongoing or the memory of it is ongoing as if it was ongoing. That's trauma. So, for an example, if a parent divorces, a child grows up with that missing parent, that's an ongoing missingness. Even if the parent who is no longer in the picture was or used to be abusive, there is missing what the reality would have been like if the child's parent wasn't abusive. that's missing. So the child is still feeling the effects of that whole picture. That's just an example. Parents fighting, parents not sleeping in the same room. There's a feeling of a break, a lack of stability, a disharmony. That scares a kid. Now, what happens to that child? The child's a little kid. The child's 3 years old, 4 years old, or 14 years old. It doesn't matter. Can the child make sense of it? No, not really. The parents can tell the child all kinds of things, yes, but for the child to feel protected, something else needs to happen. The child needs to create for herself or himself protective devices, automatic devices that they simply have on call without thinking about it, in the same way your pet can be trained to jump for a ball or such a thing, because the automaticness of it requires absolutely no thought whatsoever. Your brain just springs into action and takes care of you, so to speak. And that automatic process we can call protectors. These are not only habits and brain wiring, but those protectors almost seem to have a personality of their own, because sometimes you can hear them chattering away to you in your mind. Most people have a stream of consciousness with an awful lot going on in their mind, and emotions that spring up unannounced, unsought for, they just automatically do. So between emotions, sensations, thoughts, and a general mood, those we're going to call protectors. It's as if they had a personality, and they kind of have all these reactions that come together for that particular event. That's a protector. From the child's experience of it, this is wonderful. A classic example: children who are being mistreated will often, especially very young children, develop the ability to simply escape mentally into their imagination. And they can almost see themselves on the ceiling looking down at the scenario, or they could be outside somewhere or something else. Children have this tremendous gift of imagination. And if the problem does not go away, they'll grow up with the same ability. You could call it an ability, or you could call it a curse, because dissociation is what it becomes when you are that adult still escaping mentally. But we all have that to some degree. We can tune out to some degree stuff we do not want to hear or experience or see. And so the child's ability to escape in their imagination becomes to some degree adult dissociation. And the degree to which it's really severe, then it can get a diagnostic label of dissociation. But don't worry about those, because we all do it. And that is a protector. It helped a child get through. But now what happens? As an adult, if you're tuning out your spouse and you're not hearing what they're saying, that's not real helpful, is it? So that tune-out process can end up becoming a jeopardy, a hazard, an obstacle. But here's the thing. It was learned automatically. It was learned without a person really wanting to or trying. As I said, the same way as a pet is taught to fetch a ball or run after some toy, the pet just does it. They're not thinking, well, now let's see, I should be doing this. It's automatic. So those protectors stay with us. And the more trauma, the more you have protectors popping up when needed. Now, here's the problem. What if your spouse isn't doing anything at all that's harmful? Well, the protector was a small child, right? You were a small child when all these protectors formed to help you get through. So the small child in you, this protector that's still a small child, can't start reasoning, well, my spouse didn't mean to say it like this. It really was like that. It doesn't happen that way. It's automatic. So even when the spouse isn't trying to be hurtful, the same thing can happen to that adult who used to be that child as when they were a child. They tune out or they get angry or they misinterpret whatever the thing is that they're doing that's not working for the marriage. So when the person sees a video like this, they could tune this out too. They could not want to listen to it. They could say, I don't want to. They could do all kinds of things to avoid facing the inner pain. And surely in therapy, that will be even a greater problem of avoidance facing the inner pain. Because the person is just really trying very hard, consciously at least, to pay attention to the therapy and do what they're supposed to do. But those protectors do not trust them to behave the way they should to protect themselves. What do I mean by that? It sounds like I'm splitting you up into two parts, a set of protectors, maybe many parts, right? And them, yourself. Well, I am. That's why you have these voices that sometimes argue with yourself. Should we go to your mother's for the holiday, for dinner? I don't think so. Yes, we should. No, I don't want to, but we should. That's what happens. So we are many voices inside of ourselves. And here's the way I look at it. And my mentor, Dr. Richard C. Schwartz, looks at it. I have not learned directly from him that much, although I have on groups, but generally he is the founder of internal family systems that posits this concept. And the reason I love it is because it's exactly how I always saw the world. Namely, we have a self. Call it your soul. I call it my soul. I have no problem with that. That is separate from your thoughts and your experiences and your automatic reactions. It's something else. And that self is innocent. It's pure. It has no stains on it. And here's the problem. When a person who suffered some level of trauma growing up develops protectors, the protectors don't trust the soul, the self, to lead the person and make good decisions because that soul is innocent. That soul knows nothing. Not that they don't know it exists, but they don't feel hatred, anger. They don't feel it. It's not part of a soul. A soul is pure. Dr. Schwartz said that. The soul is pure. And if you go to my new page on OK Clarity, you'll see a lovely quote from Dr. Schwartz that I don't remember how it goes, so you'd have to go there to see it. But on that page, it shows that Dr. Schwartz sees the soul as untarnished. So protectors, which are wiser in the sense of being streetwise, because they were there to protect you from the get-go, don't trust the naivete of self. So self can, for example, I'll give you one classic in my own life. before I got a little bit wiser, I used to think, I live in New York City, right? So I used to think that if I were walking down the street at night in a bad neighborhood and someone wanted to steal my purse or they put a gun to my head or something, I could argue with them and say, but this is not good for you. Why would you ruin your life this way? I used to think you could do that. Very naive. But that's the self that's innocent, not streetwise. I got some streetwise, yeah. But the point is that this is the conflict between the wisdom, if you will, the streetwise wisdom of parts and the inner wisdom of the soul, the self, that is still innocent. Now, because of that, there is very little communication between the self and their various protective parts. And the parts will jump up to protect that person automatically when they feel challenged, when they feel put on the spot to respond with protection. So as a result, the protective parts are the ones that are sitting in that therapy room and they're feeling a little defensive, you know? You're not going to challenge me. When a person is sitting in therapy and they get challenged like that or feel that feeling of challenge, it exudes a certain air, and that sets off 99% of therapists to be on guard against that person. And so their own protectors jump in. When you've been trained in IFS, you won't do that because you're aware of the process and you search inside for your true self to handle the meeting in a good way. But that person who is just trying to learn from books or videos like this one, and they can't seem to fix the marriage without the counseling, and they can't even fix it with half of what the counseling is out there, it's because that all that's attending is protectors. And the person may not realize it. They may not realize that it's their protectors that are keeping them from learning, growing, and being vulnerable. Because they feel so used to those protectors, they say, those protectors are me. That's not a protector. That's really me. And the way I handle that in therapy is saying, was there ever a split second in your whole life that you didn't feel that way? And they will surely come up with many examples that they didn't feel that way, and that is their self. So I say, well, that's yourself, and this is clearly different, and we're calling these protectors because they are capable of listening to yourself, and yourself is truly capable of taking leadership of you. I want to stop here and just ask everyone in attendance if this is making sense, if they have a question, if they really do, they really need to ask, because here I am for you. I'm here to help make clear whatever it is I'm saying, and I realize this is complicated stuff. So please chat in the question that you may have. And if you end up watching this, because it will be right there in my channel under lives, if you end up watching this sometime later and you have a question, I do respond to every comment. I respond. Now, when I get 1,000 comments a day, then I may not. But at this time, I do respond to every comment. My channel is really new. It's growing, and I can respond to every comment. So if you have a question, or if you're not exactly clear on something, or if you just want to back it up and say, yeah, I get that, this has been my experience, please chat in now or later. Anyway, going back to our topic. So when a person's parts become part of them to such a degree that they feel as though that is them, even though there's a self lurking in the background, they are going to be weighted down, challenged more heavily and with more difficulty in trying to learn without therapy and even in therapy, unless the counselor understands all the points I have just made, which anybody trained in IFS, even the basic level 1, will understand. They may not be able to keep their protectors themselves from popping out when they feel challenged by a client, and that will depend on experience. But at least they'll understand what happened. And they should be able to facilitate the correct changes that will be necessary. So that is the basic answer to, can you fix the marriage without counseling? Yes. If you can respond, even when you feel a feeling in your guts of, you still keep your head on your shoulders and you think deeply about how you feel, and you can indeed respond with a level of sincerity and deep honesty and vulnerability rather than protectiveness to your partner, so that the tools that you read about on all these Google pages and watch on lives on YouTube, including here, and the books that you buy, including the one I wrote, all of those will help that person and that couple without therapy. But when you have a higher level of trauma in your history, you will have a higher number of protectors, which will make the therapy take longer. Now, here's the important question. How long, right? You want to know that. And I have a client that I said this to, who came to me a while back with her whole family, and then they stopped for a very, very long time and came to me again. And I said, your family? 3 years. And she's like, what? 3 years? But I understood that both she and her spouse were indeed traumatized, not only as children, but because their parents are still alive, the reactions to the world that their parents had back when they were children are the same. So in one case, there's put downs, and in the other case, there's kind of a strangeness, a strangedness, whatever that word would be, like a distance, emotionally disconnected. There was no emotion to begin with, too much. So those things remain the same. So the protectors are going to be active, and they're going to be actively messing up the relationship as well as the kids. So yeah, I figured it'll take that long. Why? Because even when a person understands on a purely analytical and intellectual basis what's going on with protectors and how they pop up when triggered and they're so automatic and they take over, etc., even when they understand that intellectually, it doesn't mean they're going to be able to stop those protectors from going right into full-scale attack or withdrawal or whatever it is that the protectors are used to doing. Therapy works a little bit differently when you have IFS, internal family systems, which is what I do and my coaching course does. Therapy with IFS has you get to know your protectors, because if they're part of you, then you don't want to just ignore them. They represent real wiring in your brain on a purely neurological level, and they represent parts of your personality, which, as I said before, your self, I call it your soul, and they're kind of connected, or you want to help them connect a little bit with some cross communication. So those parts are just there. And it's foolish for any counselor to say, don't pay attention to them, smash them down. Then you're smashing down yourself. An IFS counselor, first of all, has you get to know them, and second, appreciate what they tried to do. But third, understand that they were little kids and they're still thinking like little kids. They're still giving you directions for helping you as if you were still a little kid and you're not. So therefore, it is finally possible after those steps of recognition for the self to come into relationship with them the way a parent would to a child. So yourself is the parent of these parts. And the parts are little and yourself is the grown up. And therefore, the parts can not only listen after they caused havoc, but before they cause havoc, you get a feeling, yesterday I was shopping for a few things in the grocery store. And I said, you know what, let me buy some soup ingredients for chicken soup, because you know how it is, winters like that, colds come on. What was happening to me? This morning I woke up with a cold. What was happening yesterday? Something in my body could detect, I think, that a cold was going to come on. Something detected it. Sometimes these things we detect are totally unconscious. But as you get to do this work, it becomes just as automatic as those protectors jumping in to protect you, so that you're prepared. And it's not like you have to grit your teeth and claw your fingernails to help you avoid the confrontation that you don't want to have because your protectors are about to take over. Rather, it becomes automatic that they go kind of silent, they go underground, they're kids, they go play. You're relaxed more. You're able to handle the moment. It makes sense to you and all the protectors to just let yourself take charge. So this is a process that will take time, because it's literally rewiring you on a very deep level. However, it's not one of those things that takes like 20 years, like some psychoanalytic branches of therapy do. No, I don't believe in the type of therapy that makes you dependent on a therapist. That's not healthy. It's just a matter of practicing, kind of like if you were learning violin or some sport. It takes practice and then you're good, and then you're on your own. So let me get back to what I said in the post. If you saw my original post or email this morning on what it was that the site missed, that I noticed when I Googled this question, can a couple fix their marriage without therapy? And I saw WikiHow said, reflect on yourself, be honest, find out if you need to work on yourself. Well, this is true, but people can't do it because those protectors will not let them. They won't. That's what they missed. And that is at least half the population, if not more, that they will actually feel unable, frightened to look inside. People will. Those people who have either had trauma or not had support in the trauma. So if there are any last questions, our half hour is about to be up. And I'm happy to go over time if it's needed. I'm happy to go overtime if it's needed. But if there are any last questions, I'd love to hear from you. If not, again, type it in the comments. Have a great day, folks. This is Dr. Deb.